Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudihiraye nasta prashva badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavate uttama sloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. So we are reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, chapter 12, Vritrasura's glorious death, verse 9. Please repeat after me. Ojaha saho balam pranam amritam mrityumeva cha tam agnaya jano hetum atmanam manyate jadam ojasaho balam pranam amritam mrityumeva cha tam agnaya jano hetum atmanam manyate jadam ojasaho balam pranam amritam mrityumeva cha tam agnaya jano hetum atmanam manyate jadam. Ojasaho balam pranam amritam mrityumeva cha tam agnaya jano hetum atmanam manyate jadam. Ojasaho balam pranam amritam mrityumeva cha tam agnaya jano hetum atmanam manyate jadam. Mataji. Ojasaho balam pranam amritam mrityumeva cha tam agnaya jano hetum atmanam manyate jadam. Ojasaho balam pranam amritam mrityumeva cha tam agnaya jano hetum atmanam manyate jadam. Ojasaho balam pranam amritam mrityumeva cha tam agnaya jano hetum atmanam manyate jadam. What two-word meaning? Ojaha, the strength of the senses. Saha, the strength of the mind. Balam, the strength of the body. Pranam, the living condition. Amritam, immortality. Mrityum, death. Eva, indeed. Cha, also. Tam, him, the Supreme Lord. Agnaya, without knowing. Janaha, a foolish person. Hetum, the cause. Atmanam, the body. manyate, considers, jadam, although as good as stone. Translation. Our sensory power, prowess, mental power, bodily strength, living force, immortality, and mortality are all subject to the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Not knowing this, foolish people think the dull material body to be the cause of their activities. Please repeat the translation. Our sensory prowess, mental power, bodily strength, living force, immortality, and mortality are all subject to the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Not knowing this, foolish people think the dull material body to be the cause of their activities. There is no purport for this, so we will continue to 6:12:10. Yatha daru mayi nari, yatha patra mayo mriga, evam bhutani maghavan, ishatantrani vidhi boho. Translation. O King Indra, as a wooden doll that looks like a woman, or as the animal made of grass and leaves cannot move or dance independently, but depends fully on the person who handles it, all of us dance according to the desire of the Supreme Controller, the Personality of Godhead. No one is independent. Purport. This is confirmed in Caitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila 5.142. Ekale Ishvara Krishna arasabha vritya, yare yaiche nachaye, se taiche kare nritya. Lord Krishna alone is the Supreme Controller, and all others are his servants. They dance as he makes them do so. We are all servants of Krishna. We have no independence. We are dancing according to the desire of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But out of ignorance and illusion, we think we are independent of the Supreme Will. Therefore it is said, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the Supreme Controller. He has an eternal blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, for he is the prime cause of all causes. Om Agnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guru Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Vanchakalpatarobhesha kripa sindhubheva patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So this is an interesting pastime that we are reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, 6th canto, Vitrasura's glorious death, chapter 12. So, as it is mentioned, this is a philosophy spoken by a demon, which is very unusual. Demons usually are categorized as people who don't follow the scriptures. But here we see Vitrasura, who is the very strong demon, is fighting with Indra, the head of the demigods. And even though he's fighting, he's speaking philosophy which is topmost. He's speaking like Bhagavad Gita. The verses are very similar to that given by Krishna himself in Bhagavad Gita. So, after this pastime, Sukadeva Goswami finishes this pastime. Actually, Parikshit Maharaj is confused. He's asking, how come such a demon is speaking like a pure devotee? And he's acting like a pure devotee. Not only speaking, but he's also acting like a pure devotee. He was willing to give up his life. And he told Indra, why don't you use the weapon which is made to kill me? So we know the pastime. The weapon was created by the bones of Dadichi Muni. So, anyone here for the first time? No, everyone has been coming regularly, right? Okay, so you all know the pastime, what has happened until now about Dadichi Muni. So, you're coming, you know the pastime for what's going on? Okay, so we'll quickly summarize what has been going on. So, there was a fight between demon and the demigods. And, sorry, even before that, there was a Brahmana who was doing a yagna for the demigods. His name was Vishwarupa. So when this Brahmana was doing yagnas for the demigods, he was putting oblations, he was putting, the benefits were going to the demigods. But because his mother's side, he was half from the demon and family and half from the demigod side. So because his mother's side was from the demon side, so he was putting oblations for the demons also in between. So when Indra recognized this, that Vishwarupa, who is Brahmana for themselves, is doing this, he is cheating them. What did he do? And Vishwarupa is also not an ordinary Brahmana. He had 3 heads. It is mentioned, this Brahmana, imagine a person sitting and having 3 heads. Of course, we know, who else has got multiple heads? Lord Brahma has got 4 heads, but he is Lord Brahma. He is the one of the first jivas in this material world, right? But here is a Brahmana, Vishwarupa, who had 3 heads. And it is mentioned with 1 head, he used to drink somaras. With the other head, he used to drink wine. And with the 3rd head, he used to eat prasadam. Not prasadam, but yeah, he used to eat. He is a Brahmana, so he might be eating prasadam. But then he was offering obeisances for demigods. At the same time, he was in between offering obeisances for the demons as well. So when Indra recognized this, that this guy is cheating us, and by this doing his yagna, he will make the demons more powerful, and eventually they will conquer us. So he immediately cut off the heads of Vishwarupa, Brahmana. And of course he went, he realized that he had killed the Brahmana, so he went through Prayashchita, he went to the forest and performed austerities. But then his father, Twasta, right? Twasta performed another sacrifice to kill Indra because he had killed his son. And by that sacrifice, this demon Vitrasura was born. And this Vitrasura demon is very unusual. There is another thing which is related to this. I was going to speak about that as well. As it is mentioned here, everything is ordained by the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even though we think we are the doers, but actually we are very doers in the minute degree. Actually everything is ordained by the supreme will of the Supreme Lord. So here, when Twasta was offering obeisances to create this demon, he was meant to say, he want to create a demon who is enemy of Indra, But because his pronunciation went a little bit longer, then in Sanskrit there is like if you say a and a, it changes the meaning. So because Twasta, for some reason he chanted the mantra a little bit longer, the thing inverted. So he created a demon whose enemy was, instead of he being the enemy of Indra, Indra was his enemy. So it just twisted the words. So even though that Vitrasura was born, was created, but that Vitrasura was meant to be killed by Indra now. Because he was the enemy of Indra. Not that Vitrasura is the enemy of Indra. Getting the point? So it changed the other way. So again, this is by the will of the Lord, this whole arrangement has happened. And then when this demon is created, he was ordered to go and kill the demigods. So there is a war going on between demigods, and it looks like this demon was so powerful that everything became dark. And he's going on war, he's almost he's overpowering the demigods. And the demigods don't know what to do. So they all, of course, when demigods are in trouble, this is one of the qualities of demigods. They are devotees. So as soon as devotees are in trouble, what do? They go to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So they approach Lord Vishnu and put up their thing that this is the trouble we are going through. And Lord Vishnu said, I'm just not going into too much detail, but I'll just to cover the pastime. So Lord Vishnu gave them a solution, saying that you approach this Muni, Dadichi Muni, and this Dadichi Muni has got the power of his austerities for so many years. So ask him for his bones. And with those bones, if you create a weapon, that weapon will be able to kill Vitrasura. So that is the only way to kill Vitrasura. So the demigods go to Dadichi Muni and request him for, imagine somebody coming to us and say, give me your bones. I want to use it for my purpose. So of course, Dadichi Muni, just out of amusement, or he was completely detached actually. He was a very great saintly yogi. So he was completely detached, but just out of amusement, he's trying to first say, no, why should I give my bones for your pleasure? And then, he, of course, he gives the philosophy, he speaks about the philosophy, and he's completely detached. So he said, okay, you take my bones, no problem. So with those bones, now the weapon is created. And again, there is a war between Vitrasura and the demigods. And at one point, Indra cuts off the arm of, one of the arms of, even before that, Vitrasura is so powerful that he, with one of his weapons, he just smashes Airavata, elephant, and he's unconscious. The elephant just falls down. And then again, Indra, by his power of demigod powers, he awakens the elephant and recovers him. But then there is a fight again going on, and at one point, Indra cuts off one of the arms of Vitrasura. And then Vitrasura fights back, and with one arm he de-weapons Indra. His other Vajra falls down. And then there is a dialogue between which we are at now. There is a dialogue which is going on between Vitrasura and Indra. And then Vitrasura is speaking high-class philosophy, what is given in Bhagavad Gita. He is saying, everything is ordained by the supreme will of the Lord. There is nothing that you or me can do. So do your duty without attachment to the results. And since you have got the weapon which is meant to kill me, then you should use that weapon to kill me. So then I'll just quickly go through this pastime and then again come back to where we are. At that point, Indra then chops off another arm of Vitrasura. Now Vitrasura is so powerful that he enlarges himself. He becomes so huge and opens his mouth and just engulfs Indra. He just puts him into his belly. But again, because Indra has got mystic power, he comes out of his belly, and then he uses that weapon which was meant to kill him from the bones of Dadichi Muni. He uses to kill Vitrasura. It took him 1 year to chop off his head. That huge Vitrasura was. It took Indra 1 year to cut off the head of Vitrasura. So that was the power of Vitrasura. And again, Vitrasura being a devotee of the Lord, he just meditates on the Lord, and then before Indra cuts the head, he has already left the body. So he is in meditation. So at that point in the 16th or 17th chapter, I think, 17th chapter, Parikshit Maharaj asks, how come such a demon, he's a demon, he is fighting with the demigod, so he is not a pious person, but he is speaking like a devotee and he is acting like a devotee. He was completely detached from his body. He even gave Indra a chance to pick up his weapon again and fight back. So what? And then Sukdev Goswami says, this demon is not an ordinary demon. He was a devotee in his previous life. He was Maharaj Chitraketu. So from there on, Maharaj Chitraketu's pastime begins, where Maharaj Chitraketu once was going in an aeroplane, and he saw Lord Shiva and Mother Parvati sitting, and Lord Shiva was addressing the assembly of saints. But Mother Parvati was sitting on the lap of Lord Shiva. So out of amusement, Maharaj Chitraketu just laughed. But it wasn't like an insult. He understands Lord Shiva's position, but he laughed. And Lord Shiva also reciprocated and gave a smile to Maharaj Chitraketu. But Mother Parvati did not like that. And she said, how come this person is laughing at my husband? He does not understand his position. So I curse him because he is acting like a demon. He become a demon. And immediately Maharaj Chitraketu comes down, offers obeisances to Mother Parvati, and Lord Shiva apologizes them and says, I accept your curse. I'm happy to accept your curse because yes, I have offended you. At that point, there is an interesting point Lord Shiva mentions. Like, look at this devotee. Narayana para sarve na kutaschana bhibhiyati. Swarga apavarga narkeshwa api tulyartha darshina. So Lord Shiva is saying, these devotees of the Lord Narayan, these devotees of Lord Narayan are so renounced. Narayana para sarve na kutaschana, and they are not even fearful of anything. What to speak of if they are put into Swarga, a higher planetary system, lower planetary system, or even hellish planetary system. So they are completely fearless. Na kutashana bhivyati swarga pavarga narkesat apit tulyartha darshina. They are completely balanced and pious. So they are not, they in the service of the Lord, they are happy to go anywhere. So this is the quality of the devotee. So this is now, and then Vitrasura is born. Maharaj Chitraketu becomes Vitrasura. So now now you understand where we are coming from this pastime. So here we are coming back to that point where there is a dialogue going on between Vitrasura and Indra. So Vitrasura is speaking this, saying, O sensory prowess, I'll read the verse again. Vitrasura is mentioning, our sensory prowess, material power, bodily strength, living force, immortality and mortality are all subject to the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Not knowing this, foolish people think the dull material body to be the cause of their activities. And then, the interesting, in the Sanskrit it is mentioned, Atmanam manyate jadam. There is another similar verse which says, Atmanam manyate jagat. Does anyone know what it stands for? Atmanam manyate jagat. As my consciousness is, I will perceive things based on that. In whatever modes I am in. Suppose if I'm wearing a blue glass, I'll see everything blue. If I'm wearing a red glass, I'll see everything red. If I'm wearing a yellow glass, I'll see everything yellow. So depending on my consciousness, I will see everything. If I'm feeling cold, I will think it is cold. If I'm feeling hot, I'll say everyone is feeling hot. So one perceives the world based on his consciousness. That is Atmanam Manyate Jagat. And this same thing, same words are used, Atmanam Manyate Jadam. Jadam means, what is the verse, Jadam mean? Although as good as stone. So the when we perceive things based on our consciousness or our material body, which is as good as stone, we will not be able to perceive things as they are in reality. Getting the point that? Atmanam manyate jadam means, if we based everything based on how I think, how my senses feel, then I will not be able to perceive things as they are in reality. Because this body is jadam, it is as good as a stone. Or this body, of course, when there is a consciousness, we do perceive things through our body. There is no other way for us in our stage to perceive things on the transcendental platform, but through body. But again, that is not the only basis we should perceive things. Because there are, as we know, there are different ways of acquiring knowledge. Anyone knows what are the different ways of acquiring knowledge? Hearing, yes. Hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting, through skin. Yes, bro. Skin, yeah. So those are, what are those? They are categorized as, there's a word for it. Loudly, please. Senses or pratyaksha praman. Pratyaksha praman means how I perceive through my senses. Pratyaksha, how I conceive things based on my senses. And then there is, higher than that is anuman praman. Anuman praman is assumption. I'll assume, since Prabhu is wearing a beanie and a jacket and a shawl, somebody looks at that photograph, he will think, okay, it must be cold in Melbourne. That is an assumption, right? If somebody sees a video, somebody from India is seeing a video where there is 40 degrees right now, you would think it's cold here because people are wearing jacket and beanie and everything, right? So that's a anuman. They have not pratyaksha experienced it because they are so far and their condition is different, but they will understand depending on what they see. So that's anuman. But again, that is also not a accurate way of understanding things. Both pratyaksha and anuman are not the perfect way of understanding things. Then what is the third way of understanding things? It is sabda praman. Sabda praman means the sastras. Guru, sadhu, sastra. So these are the sabda praman. Sabda praman are the sastras where it mentions, like suppose there is authority. Once, if one goes to the meteorology website and checks what is the temperature in Melbourne, they are the authority in telling us what the weather is. And we can understand, okay, it is raining, it is cold, it is so much of degrees. And every time we check weather on the mobile phone, right? We check what is the weather going to be like tomorrow. So that is authority for weather. So similarly for transcendental things, for something which is higher, the spiritual things, there is a authority which is Shastras. So we have got authority like Bhagavad Gita, Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Caitanya Charitamrita, all these are authority in understanding things. So here as it is mentioned, one should not base his conclusions based on something which is jadam. Then Vitrasura mentions the next verse which we read today. O King Indra, as wooden doll that looks like a woman or an animal made of grass and leaves cannot move or dance independently, but depends fully on the person who handles it. All of us dance according to the desire of the Supreme Controller, the personality of Godhead. No one is independent. So we are all like, what is this verse trying to say? We are all like puppets. We are not at all independent. It's interesting. Again, going back into the 9th canto, the pastime between Durvasa Muni and Ambrish Maharaj. When Durvasa Muni is offended by Ambrish Maharaj and Durvasa Muni curses Ambrish Maharaj and creates a demon. And then there is a chakra which kills the demon and follows Durvasa Muni. And Durvasa Muni goes to Lord Vishnu for help. He goes to Brahma, Shiva, Lord Vishnu for help to protect. At that time, Lord Vishnu mentions exactly opposite of this, or very similar to this. Here it is mentioned, we jivas are not independent. And what does Lord Vishnu mention? What is the starting of that verse? Narayana Prasarve. No, that's Aham Sarvasa. No. Aham Bhakta Parahadino Hi Asatantra Ivad Vija Sadhu Grasta Ridayo Bhaktar Bhakta Janapriya. He Aswatantra. He said, I am completely dependent on my devotee. I am not at all independent. The Lord is saying, I am not independent, and here Vitrasura is saying, we are not independent. So who is right? Right? Here it is said, we are dependent completely on the Supreme Lord. And Lord is saying, I am completely dependent on my devotees. I have no control over my devotees. I am dependent on them. So it's interesting point. So this is the reciprocation between Lord and the pure devotees of the Lord. When we are on the pure, when we see pure devotees, they are completely dependent on the Lord. There is an interesting pastime story I heard. There was a devotee, Babaji, going in a boat, crossing the river. So while he was going, it's a big river. So while they are crossing the river, there is a storm in the river. I'm not sure if I've told this in my last, but anyways, it's interesting, related to this. So while they are crossing the river, there is a storm in the river. And since they are, I think they were crossing Ganges, and everyone basically in that area was a devotee. So the boat started to shake, and at some point, this boat is not a very cruise liner or something, it's a village boat. So it started to shake, and the water is starting to come into this boat because of the storm. And the boatman, out of just natural, he said, I think Krishna is going to drown us today. So this Babaji, who was sitting in the boat, he was not, he's completely renounced. He was not worried about what is going to happen. But as soon as he heard, I think Krishna is going to drown us today, he started to fill his lota with water from outside and started pouring into the boat. And this boatman is saying, what are you doing? It is as it is, water is coming in and you are putting more water into the boat. We'll drown quicker. And this Babaji is still doing it. And then after a while, the storm went by, and then again this boatman said, oh, Krishna saved us. I think Krishna has saved us. We are not going to drown. And this Babaji now started filling the water from the boat and throwing it outside in the river. So now this boatman is confused. What is this person doing? First he was putting water inside, and then he is putting water outside. So he asked this Babaji, like, why are you behaving like this? And he said, you said Krishna is going to drown us. Whatever Krishna wants, I'll just help him do that. And now you said Krishna is going to save us. So I'm helping Krishna. So my purpose is to be the same as what Krishna's purpose is. So this is the consciousness of a pure devotee. They're not worried about their personal needs or things. They just want to follow what Krishna says. So I thought it was a very nice pastime, and it fitted in here. Vitrasura has got the very similar consciousness. He said, this is the will of the Lord that I need to die. I'm happy to die. You take up this weapon and kill me. Because that weapon you have been advised by the Lord himself to create this weapon to kill me. So that is the desire of the Lord. I'm happy to follow the will of the Lord. Yeah, another point which is mentioned here is that foolish people, not knowing this, foolish people think the dull material body to be the cause of their activities. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna mentions Prakrite kriya manani gune karmani sarvasa ahankara vimudatma karta ham iti manyate. So spirit soul bewildered by the influence of false ego thinks himself the doer of activities that are actually carried out by the three modes of material nature. So this ignorance of things as they are, as we discussed at the beginning of the class, ignorance of jadam, buddhi, that ignorance of things as they are, where does this come from? How are we into that ignorance? So again, going back into Bhagavatam 3rd canto, after the in the beginning, the first 11 chapters, it is explained how the Sarga happens. And then 12 chapters onwards, it is Visarga, is explained. What is Visarga? What is the difference between Sarga and Visarga? Anyone? No one? What is the difference between Sarga and Visarga? Okay. So, Sarga is the primary creation. The first creation which happens, which is created by the three Purushas. And then Visarga, three Purushas is the Vishnu himself. Karnodaksha Vishnu, Garbhodaksha Vishnu and Kshirodaksha Vishnu. So that part is known as Sarga. And then when Brahma starts to create, Brahma has been given everything to create, all the elements are given to Brahma. So from Brahma onwards, when he begins to create, he uses all those ingredients given to him and begins to create. That is known as Visarga from that point onward, secondary creation. So that is the primary creation, Sarga, which is done by the Lord himself. And then secondary creation is when Lord Brahma begins to create. So as soon as Brahma starts to create, what is the first thing Brahma creates? Is ignorance. So he creates 5 kinds of ignorances. Why does he create ignorances? Because it is mentioned without, okay, we'll discuss the ignorances first, and then we will ask this question, why is this created? So the first ignorance, the first type of ignorance that he created was tama. What does tama mean? Tama means ignorance of our own self. Not knowing who we really are. So that is covered first. It is mentioned, those who are studying Nectar of Devotion right now, the first thing when a living entity comes into the material world, he is covered by avidya. And because of that avidya, what happens? There is a seed which gets implanted into heart of the, or into the soul of a devotee, which is known as bijam, or the seed of committing sinful activities. So that seed is implanted. Bij means seed. Seed is implanted. And then because of that seed, he commits sinful activity. Papam, he is creating an environment. Pap, punya, everything, but it's papam basically. He performs sinful activities. And then because of the sinful activities, he gets reactions, which are known as prarabdha and aprarabdha. Some manifest immediately, some manifest over a period of other lifetimes or in due course of time. So those are known as prarabdha and aprarabdha. Reactions come. And then because of those reactions, he is getting an inclination, which is known as kutam. And then again, that further implants the seed. So this avidya is the cause of one's coming into the material world and being in the material world perpetually. Lifetime after lifetime, we have been in the material world. Why? Because of this avidya, tamaha. So the first thing that living entity, when he comes from the spiritual world, is covered by this tamaha, first kind of ignorance which was created by Brahma. Also it is mentioned, this tama, or it is also known as Mahamaya, has got 2 functions. Mahamaya is the entire material energy which keeps the living entity within the material world. And this tama is one of the components of it. So Mahamaya, what is the function of Mahamaya? There are 2, Avarnatmika Shakti, which covers the living entity of his real identity. Originally we are all spirit souls or servants of Lord. In the spiritual world we are eternal, we have got an eternal entity, we have got an eternal form. But that form is covered, our real identity is covered because of that Avarnatmika Shakti. And then there is Prakshepatmika Shakti. So Prakshepatmika Shakti is understanding that we are this body. So first thing is we are covered by our real identity, and second is we are made to believe that we are this body. We are made to believe I am Australian, Indian, or I am man, woman. So all those things, the upadhis are given to us because of that Prakshepatmika Shakti. Avarnatmika Shakti covers our real identity. Prakshepatmika Shakti gives us our false identities, makes us believe. So that is tama. And then there is second level of ignorance which is created by Brahma is moham. Moham means, again, that is Prakshapatmika Sikta, where one believes that this body is himself. So that is Moham. Whatever form of body, each and every living entity is completely satisfied within his body. Even a pig is satisfied in his body. He thinks life is good here. We all know the pastime of Indra when he became a pig. And like Brahma had to remind him, you are Indra, what are you doing in the body of a pig eating stool here? He said, no, life is good here. The stool is so nice, fresh and hot every day. I have got a nice family, nice kids. So life is very good. But then he had to give him realization that this is not good. You are a Lord of heaven. And so the point is, this moham makes us believe whatever body we are in, it makes us believe that we are happy in this body, we are enjoying in this body. So that is moham. The third level of ignorance that is created by Brahma was mahamoham. And now this mahamoham is anything which is related to this body, we think it's ours. We think these children are mine, this wife is mine, or wife thinks husband is mine. We think this house is mine, this car is mine. Anything happens to the car, I get affected. If there is an accident to the car, even though it has nothing to do with my body, but I do get affected. So that is because of mahamoham. So first is tama, where I forget who I'm really in the spiritual world. Second is moham, where I think I am this body. And then mahamoham is even further down, where I think peripherally attached to this body is also me. And then Brahma created tamishram. And now this tamishram is coming anger or frustration which comes out of the first three. Even though I'm not the car, somebody scratches the car, I feel angry, I feel frustrated. Even though it has nothing to do with my body or me. So that is tamishram. And then there is andha tamishram. Andha tamishram means it's like a state of unconsciousness or death. We see today there are so many kinds of diseases going on, depression, anxiety, stress. What are this? They are basically because of andha tamishram. Things which are not related to us, but we still worry about those things. We still have stress, anxiety, depression because of those things. If we can understand this 5 ignorances which were created by Brahma, we can get relieved from many of the problems in life. So now coming to that question, why was this 5 ignorances created? So anyone can answer. You have already touched on the points. Why was this created? But anyone can bring out what was the need for creating this 5 ignorances, level of ignorances? Anyone? There is no right or wrong answer. We are not going to judge you for that. So what was the need for creating these ignorances by Brahma?
So that living entity can forget and fulfill their desire to try to enjoy peace, etc. from Krishna.
Yes, very good. Thank you, Prabhu. Good answer. So if these ignorances were not there, what would happen? Sorry? We all will be back to Godhead, or otherwise what will happen? Suppose if a child gets lost in some mela, typical Indian Bollywood story. Child gets lost in a fair or somewhere. Now that child, what will happen to that child? Of course, he is a bit grown-up child like these boys. What will happen to the child if he does not know how to get back to his parents? Anxious, he will not be happy. He will cry, right? He will be very sad. But if that child is made to forget who his parents are and made to believe someone else is his parents, then he will be okay, or he forgets everything. He'll be okay, at least he will be able to survive. But as long as he remembers who he originally is, it will be impossible for him. He will be very miserable. So similarly, if we know who we are in the spiritual world, it will be a miserable situation for us. First of all, this place is not conducive. There are so many problems. Problems after problems. The first 4 problems are birth, death, old age, disease, continuously going on. And then there is other problems, Adi Bhautik, Adhyatmik, Adi Devik. Problems because of body and mind, problems because of other living entities, problems because of natural calamities. So there are problems after problems in this material world. And if we knew who we were in the spiritual world, it will be very difficult for us to survive in this material world. So that is why this tama or this 5 kind of ignorances were created, so that we can forget who we really are and made us believe that we are this body. And we are happy. And third is like Mahamom, it makes us believe we are happy also in this body. Nobody, if you ask on the street or people who don't know anything about the Shastra, if you ask them, are you happy? Yeah, I'm enjoying. No worries, mate. There are no worries here. But life is full of worries. But they will not accept that. This is because of this 5 ignorances. So, ignorance is bliss, that's right. So when you know you have got a cancer, it's very difficult to live after that. Because you're continuously thinking about the disease. So that is why ignorance is sometimes bliss. But yeah, that is why Brahma created this ignorance, so that a living entity forgets who he really is. But the whole point of Shastra is to bring you back to the point. And this is only because once you understand what level, what ignorances are and what level you are on, you can progress from there. So this is only accessible to the devotees. Because imagine, as Mataji said, if we were not under this ignorance, we would have been back to Godhead. But what about our desires? Our desires would still remain there, to be separate from Krishna or to be Krishna, to enjoy like Krishna. But here, as it is mentioned in the purport, it is mentioned, Ekale Ishvara Krishna ara sabha bhritya, yara yaiche nache, ei teche kare nritya. So there is only one God. Ekale Ishvara Krishna. There can only be one God. But if we have that mentality of being God equal to Krishna or being Krishna, then it's not possible we'll be able to survive or be happy in the spiritual world also. So just to facilitate that, these ignorances were created, we are here, and back we can again practice through the process of sadhana, bhakti, Vaidhi sadhana, bhakti, ragana sadhana, we can practice this and perfect our life and understand our relationship to Krishna, and then we can go back home, back to Godhead. So this is like a hospital where we are in. We have got a disease and we are going through the recovery process in the hospital. And then once we are again back to normal, we'll be given access to our real identity, and we can overcome the ignorances and go back home, back to Godhead. Okay, I'll stop here. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, Prabhu. Why, sorry?
Why do we use his name as a Asura? Because Prahlad Maharaj, we say Prahlad Maharaj, we don't say Asura. Whereas Visarga also has a pure consciousness. Why do we address him as a Asura?
Because he was born for a purpose, to be enemy of Indra. So Prahlad Maharaj never killed or never fought with the devotees or demigods. And Prahlad Maharaj is because we use Maharaj is because he is a Mahajan as well. Because we can follow Prahlad Maharaj, we cannot follow Vritrasura. So even though Vritrasura is a pure devotee, but still we cannot follow what he did. Fight with devotees and then again have the consciousness, I know Bhagavad Gita. But yeah, this is just an example given for us to understand that externally we cannot judge anyone. One can be, but yes, that is why Maharaj means we can follow someone. So that is why that title is. Yeah. Any other questions, comments? Okay, we'll stop here. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Granth Raj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki Jai. Thank you all for coming.